Good afternoon. I am so excited today to have Michelle Lee here. She is an amazing sales coach that really focuses on building relationships and how you can increase communication to increase your sales. So there's no slimy, pushy selling here. It's all really about authenticity. And that is what we need more than anything in this AI driven world with lots of things that we don't know if they're real or not. Relationships are still how it sells. So we are on StreamYard. Wherever you are watching this, there should be a comment that says that if you click there and put in your name, you can comment into StreamYard. So please do that. This way, then you can leave comments, you can leave questions, and we can get back to you. So Michelle, it's so good to have you here. Could you just take a quick minute and introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your process before we get started?
Oh, thanks, Jennifer, and I'm excited to be here. Hello, everyone. So I am Michelle Lee. I live near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I am a certified coach and trainer with a methodology called BANK, which an amazing founder and creator, Sherry Tree, created, and she reverse engineered personality science. So it has a very specific twist where it actually gives you the ability to make people matter and connect with everyone that you speak to.
That is great. So I am excited about this training. I have been on other trainings by Michelle, and I always get so much out of it. So first things first, we are in a world where things are very fast paced. There's a lot going on. Everybody wants to create more because we have AI and just automate everything to make it easier. But how do we balance that, like leveraging tools like that with still authentically selling and actually make sales? Because that's what's important in business.
That's a great question. And what I love about what we do is it's high tech, but it's high touch.
Mm-hmm.
So we bring that human into the sales process and into the AI. We have an AI, but it has empathy built in. It's about connecting. So when we break it down into our system, we're looking at the other person who's sitting across from us. What are their core values? What's important to them? And how do we connect with them faster and give them the information they need? Speak to them in the language they were meant to be spoken to instead of how we just assume they are.
Yes, that's a really great point. So I know that there are different personalities in BANK, and if you could just go over that like very quickly so we can understand, like, what is this BANK system? Why is it different than other sales methodologies that just show you how to close a sale but don't concentrate on that personality and that communication style?
So BANK is reverse engineered personality science. So BANK is an acronym for the 4 personality types. You have Blueprint. They're inside the box. They're colder to approach. Why we use the color blue. We need things like systems, stability, structures, planning, processes. They follow the rules. If you say rules are meant to be followed, probably higher in the Blueprint. They're looking for predictability. That's why they love systems and processes. And they are very organized. They'll show up early to a meeting. They're very professional. Then you get your actions. They're the movers and shakers, the millionaire makers, like little firecrackers in your hands. They blew up the box. There's shrapnel flying all over the place. Because when we come in, you hear us before you see us. And we want fun and freedom and flexibility. We want to feel your energy. Like if you're not excited about your product, why should we be? Get to the bottom line. We want things fast. We make decisions fast. Some of the other codes can't understand how we make decisions so fast without all the information and details, but we do. Then you have nurturing. They're all about relationships. They recycled the box. They put a little prize inside, wrapped it up real nice with a bow, and gave it away. They're about teamwork, authenticity, personal growth. They want to make this world a better place. They really want to build on those relationships. And then there's the knowledge. And they're like, listen, without me, you wouldn't even have a box. I engineered it. Science, data, research, logic. It has to make sense. They ask a ton of questions. The key is that all of us are made up of all 4 of these codes. It's just the order that they show up in that actually is our wiring system.
Hmm.
There's 24 different ways a code can show up, which when people don't understand who's in front of them and what language to speak, then they become to play sales as a numbers game, and they're just treating people like numbers, one right
Mhm.
after the other.
Yes, and that definitely it can work, but it's so much harder, and it only works for so long, right? Because you can only get so many numbers in if you're treating it as a numbers game. At some point, it's hard to get the numbers, and at some point, you burn out from just trying to push through that all the time. So when I did the original training with you about bank, which was so eye-opening, I realized I have 4 kids, and every single one of them was a different personality type. I had all, I had every letter, and so it made sense of why when I say something, I think I explain this, and maybe only one of them gets it. Where we do something and it's like I've done it same with all of them, but yet it doesn't all work. So I understand how that works differently and the different personalities. How, though, when you're sitting down to a sales call, or let's say you're creating a sales page, how can you incorporate the idea of people having different personalities without you having to recreate the wheel 4 times? Is there a way that and I know that there's the cards, which is great, which I would like you to talk about too, but like how can we gear ourselves up when we're stepping into something and we need to adjust to the person's personality?
So, and we teach an amazing course called Power Scripting, where we teach people how to do that and break it up
Mhm.
into those codes.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: if you're sending a message out and you don't know who's in front of you, like bulk emails, marketing material, you're putting stuff on Facebook, you can either speak to all 4, or
Mhm.
you can target your ideal avatar and what is their bank code.
Hmm. Good idea. Yes. So then that gets back to really, really understanding your ideal client, because even though all of us are part of that 4 in certain combinations, and they all exist in every niche, there's still, we attract a certain type of person. And so we're most likely going to be working with people over and over again from the same type of personality. Not to saying that outliers can't come in, but that is an important thing of really knowing that about your ideal client, not just who they are, how old they are, like what niche they're in, but really understanding their personality and how they operate in the world and how they communicate. I think communication, understanding the communication part of your ideal client is so important. And too few people talk about that. They talk about setting up your avatar and understanding your ideal client and making sure that you have that dialed in so that you know what they're eating for breakfast. But really, what it comes down to is how do they communicate and how they consume information. Would you say that that's really the biggest part of marketing and sales as far as understanding your ideal client?
Well, absolutely. Look at that communication piece. You want to be able to speak to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to be seen, heard, and understood. Sometimes people work with their actual opposite codes.
Mm-hmm.
So and that puts an even harder strain on that sales process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to really understand, who is this person? Otherwise, I'm speaking French and they're
Yeah.
speaking German, and we're never going to connect. It's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
constant battle, like rolling a boulder up a hill.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Yes.
I thought I was good at sales, but what
Mm.
happened was my action first, nurturing second, then knowledge and blueprint. But what happens is I was just going so fast, I was just throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall. And when I'd meet somebody who had a personality just like me, they'd buy.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the other 75% of the people? I
Yes.
lost them. I ran them over.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Um, I'm slightly different. So I'm nurturing blueprint knowledge action. Action is most definitely the last one for me. And so I like to nurture and teach and explain and make them feel good about what they're doing and show them how they, like empower them to do things. But then to actually get them to take action was very, very difficult for me, because I liked all of that nurturing and conversing and making them feel better and teaching them what they could do. But then obviously they needed the next step. And the action side was hard because I like to just keep having the conversation. I felt like at some point they should just be like, sure, I just want to buy this because you're so nice. So there have been people that have done that, but really you can't bank on that. No pun intended. Yeah, so that is really important. So when you're using the AI portion of it, how, if you could explain a little bit about how you can leverage a tool like that, but not have it be really superficial and kind of cold. Because even people that are into blueprints, like they still don't react well to the cold computer generated type thing. They need that human connection on some level. And there's so many tools out there, and I know some people swear by it that that's all you need. You could run your whole business on AI, right? And then there's other people that are like, I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole. It's the worst thing ever. And I'm somewhere in between because I feel like, a calculator helps you do higher level math, but you still need to understand math. And the people that do really well with calculators are ones who understand math and have the brain to come up with a blueprint and a plan, and then they use that tool to help them. So I see as using it as a tool can be useful, but it doesn't replace people doing things, if that makes sense. So with all of this going on, what is your feeling of how to balance that? Like how to leverage tools such as the AI that you have or other AIs that are coming out, but still make sure that it's not going too far into that we've removed the whole relationship out of it and that it's just all automated.
So that's why I love what I do so much, because we put that relationship piece, that's the main focus.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're running stuff through, say, our AI, think of it as a translator. Okay, because each one of these codes speaks a completely different language.
Yeah.
And I'm interpreting it based on my code. So when I use our AI, I decode it, and now it tells me, wait, they're not speaking English. Michelle, you need to switch to French so that you can respond to them and that they're going to be understood. And you're going to be understood. It's not up to the person sitting across from me to try to figure out what I'm saying. Yes. It's up to me to explain it to them so that they do. And that's what this in our AI does for people.
Yes. And that's a good point about it's not up to the other person to figure out what you're saying, because that goes beyond the sales process, right? This is really a whole client journey thing. And sometimes we treat sales as this little event and that it's separate and it has nothing to do with everything else. And it's kind of like marketing. We treat marketing as like we do marketing and then we get to sales and then there's everything else. But through the whole thing is sales and marketing, and it's part of that client journey. And so if you aren't speaking the language that your ideal client speaks, they're going to have a really hard time going through your coaching, going through your courses, reading your books, because you're speaking a whole different language. And as a linguist, I really appreciate that, because for me, it's exciting to be thrust into another language and have to figure it out. At the same time, if I'm pressed for time and I need to get something done and I want to understand what it is, there are times that I'll mess with it and I'll try to read in a different language. And there's just times that it's like, just tell me what to do, right? Like that's why I bought into this, or that's why I came to this call with you. I just need to understand it. And I had another point that let me just pull it in for a second. This was my question. So like I know that I'm very high nurturing with that blueprint mixed in there. But does that mean that I need to learn how to totally change my personality so that I can work with people that are high action? Because like I have a son who's high action and I love him dearly and he's adorable, but it's like Chinese and Swahili a lot of the times. Okay.
Exactly.
Our brains just don't work the same. So if I'm running my whole business, I feel like that would be exhausting to try to reinvent myself to talk to all these different people. So how do you balance that? How do you still be able to talk to them, but not feel like you need to change who you are or completely put on a mask and a performance every time you're talking to somebody different?
So I love that question because you're not changing who you are at all.
Mhm.
You are the same person. Your core values are the same, but it's having enough respect for the person across from you to meet them where they are.
Mhm.
So, for example, my son is the complete opposite code of me. So he's blueprint, knowledge, nurturing, action.
Mhm.
For me to have a conversation with him, I have to slow down. I can't talk 100 miles an hour. He can't connect the dots. I completely lose him. He needs to have the next steps. What's the step-by-step process? His second code is knowledge, so it's got to make sense.
Mhm.
He's going to check the facts. He needs to know that it's the facts. Right?
Mhm.
So, and then when I slow down, he has to process. So he needs time to catch up. Where his whole life, he never had that.
Mm.
So, for example, with your son, you're just speaking his language. You're just meeting him where he is. So if you have to bump up your energy a little bit, be like, okay, come on, let's go.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not changing who you are. You're
Mhm.
just going from English to French.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point because we don't want to feel overwhelmed going into a sales process because I feel like it is such a stretch for everybody. There's some people that are born salesmen, but I don't think there's that many of us, right? I think most people have to practice it. And so it feels like a stretch already. And I think it's important to know that even though it is a stretch, it can be that communication and that relationship. It doesn't have to be this complex system that you just have to keep checking the boxes. And in your mind, you're just running through the script. I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up in sales is that we've been taught this is the way you do it, and then when the other person doesn't say what's supposed to happen in the script, or we can't really internalize that script because it's not written in our personality for us to be able to deliver it, then it gets really hard. And then I know when I met you, I was like, sales, I'm like the worst at sales. Like if I could just get to the teaching part and nurturing people, we're great. But if I have to sell something, like it just doesn't work. And I think that there needs to be more discussions around this because I was originally a teacher and I went to grad school, and my whole grad school and my thesis were all about the different learning styles and how people learn. And the idea was how to teach and reach every person. And that had such an impact on me because I really loved adapting things to my students, but it opened my eyes to think of how differently people think and how differently people process information and how they actually learn. And so I think that ties into this. And many times that gets lost in our world because we just okay, we're going to do a webinar. Oh, people didn't come to the webinar because some people can't learn on a webinar, right? Or oh, we're going to write a book. Well, why didn't everybody buy my book? Because some people need to have hands-on or they need to have the webinar. And so I think that ties into this is remembering that those learning styles don't end when you leave school. We think of learning as like you're in school, now we're out of school, and so we don't need that anymore. But it's really important to consider that when we're working with our clients, when we're designing materials, and also when we're marketing and going through the sales process. So I think that this is such a valuable training for anybody, no matter what business you're in, no matter what you're doing in life, whether you're a teacher or a plumber or a marketing strategist, it just is so helpful because, like I said, going through it and realizing that my 4 children are totally different letters was very eye-opening. And sometimes I still have to stop and think about that when I'm trying to work through something because I'm like, why doesn't this make sense? Okay, let's step back and think of why this doesn't make sense to them. So is there anything, because we're getting towards the end of our time together. Is there anything else that you would like to share about, really in this time, 2024, I feel like people are so skeptical. We've had some really wild years, and it's changed the landscape of learning and marketing and sales and really just how we relate to each other. And I feel that the biggest thing people need right now is trust and connection more than they need extra content. Like they really need that trust and connection. So is there anything else that you would like to share about just getting into that mindset of that and how we can make that the first priority of our sales process, not the making the sale the first priority?
Absolutely. And this is one of the reasons that Sherry Tree brought this all. We're on a movement. We're on a movement to make people matter because there's such a disconnect in the world. People's relationships are falling apart. The communication is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you bring AI into it, everything's automated. And so she wanted to bring this into the world to bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
In the sales process, in your family, everybody has a code. If you could magically unlock and reveal the wiring system, the operating system of everyone around you and how they wanted to be communicated to, what would the world look like? If I knew what my kids' codes were growing up, oh my gosh, the difference in our lives, it would have been night and day.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have stressed my son out for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the business world, it's all built on relationships. So our goal is to bring people together. Everyone can crack their code and get a free report to see how they're wired. And the first start is that self-awareness. Like, how am I showing up? Now, how are the people around me showing up?
Yes. And I think that is important because many times we think about this like, I need to understand the other person, but understanding yourself, going through your process was eye-opening as well because it explains so much. Like I know that you said, and this was just a little tidbit, but the third letter of your code is your default stress reaction. And I thought, what sense does that make? I don't know. Okay, I'll just go with it. But then when we did the code, I was like, that is totally what I do. Because when I get stressed, K is my third one, like knowledge, I just dive into research. Like I can research anything. Plastic cups. Like I will just find something and I'll go down rabbit trails. And that is how I deal with stress. But I never really saw it that way or understood it. So now when I start going down that path, I need to step back. It's like, okay, I still enjoy researching and sometimes I just let myself like do that. But it triggers that, okay, this is a stress reaction. What am I running away from by doing this research that I can, justify because it's valuable, and it is valuable, but it really is me trying to cocoon against what's going on and not dealing with it. So I feel like understanding how I react to things and how I deal with people has been just as beneficial as understanding other people. So yeah, that was a very, like I said, eye-opening experience. And I thought, wow, I wish I had known this
right
many, many years ago. It would have changed a lot of things. All those hours spent, because the internet is like a dangerous thing for me, because when I was a kid, it was encyclopedias, but they only went so far, right? The internet, you could just search forever and never end. So probably could have saved myself a lot of sleepless nights when I was just, up researching instead of sleeping. So you mentioned a free way for people to find out about their personality if they haven't done this bank before. How can they get in touch with you to just initially like learn, how am I interacting with people and what does this mean?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and they can also we can drop a link in the chat where they can actually get a free report and take that first step for self-awareness.
Okay, so if you are watching this, and I will go and check the channels, and Michelle will check hers as well, and you want that free report, please just comment below report, and we will make sure that we get you that link. It is a great report. I highly recommend you doing it, just so you can understand those different personalities and how it fits into you. And I promised a free gift for those people who stay till the end. So I have a guide on understanding your ideal client and how to really get your messaging to target them and plan out your marketing to really connect with them and build those relationships like Michelle has been talking about. So if you would like that report that is so valuable, it includes a workbook to really work through this and understand your ideal client, please drop ideal client in the comments and I'll be sure that you get that as well. Thank you so much for being here, Michelle, and thank everybody who was here. If you missed it, feel free to watch the replay, invite friends, because this is just so valuable and we can't lose these relationships and this idea of communication in an AI-driven world. Yes, it's a tool and it will be here and it's not going anywhere. But as Michelle said, business is built on relationships, and that is still the most powerful force in our world, no matter what business or type of organization you're running, or even just dealing with people in everyday life and within your home. So thank you for being here, and be sure to stop in every Wednesday for more marketing tips and great lessons on how you can build a better relationship with your ideal client and through marketing and sales, like Michelle said.